Hi, it's Mayo. I am back with, I'm hoping, a better system here. And today we're going to work on a Seascape. And it's kind of taken after Winslow Homer. And we're going to be using the Chiaroscuro approach, which is basically blocking out the dark shapes so it tells us where the lights are. And many artists used this approach, and Da Vinci, let's see, Decroix, Monet, Delacroix, and many of them use this, including Winslow Homer. It's how to pay attention to change, especially light versus dark, and Michel Serrault, Principles of Harmony and Contrast. It's about the modifying effect of one color against another. So we're going to start out with just blocking out our dark shapes. And this is a Seascape, so we're going to mix in our palette. Is going to start with a iron oxide, which is burnt sienna, and ultramarine blue. We get a real nice dark color rather than using a black. So this is how we're going to start it out. And we're going to block out our colors and our composition. This is also, we're going to kind of incorporate, we're going to start out with the palette, which is the iron oxide. And it's a messy palette, but this is how it is. So I mix the iron oxide, which is the burnt sienna, and I mix it with the ultramarine blue. We're going to get this dark color. We got titanium white, we've got cadmium red, we've got cerulean blue, and we got a little Viridian green. So we're going to start our Seascape up here. And this is also an approach the Japanese used, because it's called the floating horizon, and that is it's interesting because it's floating horizon is what the Japanese use. And I'm going to stop here for a second, and it's moving the horizon up. It's a Japanese art floating world method of composition. We move the horizon up, and just so long as your horizon is not in the middle. We don't want anything in the middle, anything. We don't want things symmetrical. We want it asymmetrical. So we're going to start with our linseed oil, and we're going to start with the rocks up in here. So we're going to block out, very simply, and a light brush, this area here. This is a Seascape, so we're going to put a little bit of the burnt sienna in here too. Now I'm using just a little bit of the color. I'm not getting it built up yet. Not yet, because we're working on the composition. So then we're going to put down here another area of rock, and we're going to go up and then back down. So here's our foreground, and everything in the foreground is always darker, and everything in the background is lighter, kind of a linear perspective. And then we're going to put one in here like that. And that is going to be our composition, kind of a zigzag approach. And Homer liked to use a zigzag composition. It's interesting, and it creates a flow for the viewer. So this is how we're going to start it. Then we're going to wipe this brush off. Put a little bit more in here and down in here. We're going to put that brush down. And we're going to start with another one. So now we're going to do the background. Now that we've got our black shapes in, which helps us figure out our composition, we're going to go in with the blue, with the titanium white. We're going to dip it in that linseed oil. And we're going to go back in here and add this floating horizon. And that's what, if you study anything about Japanese art, you'll notice that they lift the horizon, and they call it a floating horizon rather than one that is centered. And then we're going to bring it down in here, some of these colors. And dip in the linseed oil again. Yeah, there you go. Make it nice and juicy. And, we're going to take a little bit of this beautiful cadmium with a touch of flesh, and we're going to bring it in here way high for that effect. And we're going to wipe that brush off, go back in with the white. I love this effect, just to give it that kind of a look. And then a little bit of the cerulean blue. We're going to put that in here. There we go. And we're going to do a little bit of an angle. I think it creates that zigzag composition, which creates interest. And I like that. We're going to keep it straight, though, at the horizon, the floating horizon. Then we're going to bring the waves down a little bit. And in here, we're going to have a tumbling wave here. And one in here. Except we're going to leave a lot of white in the middle. And then we're going to come in here. And back into the white. And we're going to bring that in here at the top. At the top of the wave. Tumble it over here. We're going to bring it up to the top. Try to keep organized when you paint. Keep it simple. Don't get things too complicated. And right in here, I'm going to put in the top of the wave. And we're going to tumble it under. See? Like that. Here too. Just tumble it under. Create that floating wave. Then we're going to take, I'm going to take a smaller brush, or maybe this fine brush. We have two wide brushes. And we're going to bring in a little bit underneath that top of that wave is going to be this darker color. Yeah, just like that. And here too, a little bit of an angle. Dip it right back in. Sometimes I like to mix in a little bit of the brown with the burnt sienna, with the Viridian. It neutralizes it. So we're going to put that in here. A little bit under the wave. Yep. In here. I like that color because it neutralized it. Then we're going to bring it in here a little. Get that brush. Yep. Okay. Then back in with the white brush. Then we're going to bring in, again, a little bit. Dip it in your linseed oil. A little bit of this. It's a little bit of Viridian with a little bit of the burnt sienna to neutralize that green. There you go. We're going to bring it in a little bit more here, so I'm going to probably darken it. A little bit more Viridian. Yeah, just a little bit, and just in here. Yeah, how it rumbles and rolls and falls forward, and then a little in here. Okay. Then we're going to come in here, and we're going to kind of make these S's for the waves. And, well, actually, it's the way the water flows in these kind of S patterns. And we can drop our brush and use this one because I like the way it just shows it. I'm not using a lot of paint, if you notice, but I want to give it that kind of a composition like little snakes winding around like the water when it hits the rocks on the reef. And this is a technique you will see a lot with Homer's landscapes. Winslow Homer, his seascapes, he studied them quite often. He had a home on the East Coast, and he studied this kind of a feeling here. Then I'm going to take the titanium white, hard to grab down here, and I'm going to put in, very simple, a splash. And I love this because you want this feeling of the rocks, the water splashing like it does up against the rocks. So we're going to put that in here. I'm going to use a smaller brush. It's up to you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it here and just go, watch. Maybe a lot more than I should, but that's how I'm going to do it. And we're going to have it splash like this, see, up against, like that. And put it right on the rocks because that's where I want it. We're going to run back in a little bit of dark here. But right now, that's the effect I kind of want. And then in here, I'm going to run it here too. And in here, run it right against the brown. It kind of brings it in like that. I actually like, dip it in the linseed oil. I actually like it like that here. Yeah. A little bit. Well, we can come back in and put a little bit more white in, or we can go back in and get iron oxide and that beautiful ultramarine blue. Kind of make it a zigzag like that. That's how I want it. Yeah. And then in here, I want to add some of this lighter tone I have. A little bit. It kind of creates a grayish look, which I think is a nice neutral color. In here with the white. Get that little string off. And we're going to bring this one up for composition reasons, and that one down like that. Now, I want it a little bit darker, so I'm going to add a little bit more blue. And remember, it's the ultramarine in our palette. Ultramarine mixed with iron oxide. And iron oxide is what? Burnt sienna. So we're going to do that again here. Instead of using a black, we're going to mix that up. And then we're going to come in here. We're going to give it this kind of a look. Yep. Yeah, I like that. Maybe here, run it across, and here. And then we'll have that splash. Here too. Just come in and run it. We're working wet on wet here. That's what I like. A little darker. And here. There you go. And here. And we're going to bring it back in here for a nice edge. So bring it down. No black. There. That I like. Now, we're going to wipe the brush clean, and we're going to come in here, and we're just going to move in and make that kind of the waves, the F's look, see, in here. Bring it in here. Now, go back. Into this area. And what we do is we're going to put in some of that, with the bubbles. The bubbles you see in the water. And it causes a reflection. So it's great to pat. Put your bubbles in. And I'm going to bring my arm in here, and I'm going to make this one look a little bit less complicated in here. Even though I like it, I'm just going to swipe it down a little bit here, like that. Bring the waves in with the smaller brush again. Yeah, some of those bubbles you can pat here. Smaller brush. And we're going to come in a little bit with that Viridian at the edge in here. That's how I want it. So, we're pretty much getting this in pretty quick. I'm going to show you a few more things. It's going to be a short one, so I'm happy about that. And you will too be happy about that. So it's nice to do short videos so you can get the idea for the beginning painter. And I'm going to put a little bit more Viridian up in here. I'm going to go behind the waves because I'm going to bring in probably another splash in here. And like that. And in here. Okay. Come back in with your big brush and just do those swirls with the tip. Yeah, I like that. And in here. So now I'm going to take a good look here, dip it back in there, and we're just going to smooth this one out a little bit in here underneath and like that. Put in some more of that titanium. And a tiny bit of that cadmium. We're just going to bring it in like that. I like that. A little bit less in here. A little bit of that color. The cadmium. And in here. Swipe that in. And then over in here, we're going to leave this part white right here. I want to leave that. And this is an interesting composition. So we're just going to leave it like that. Swirl around. We got some bubbles in here. Those bubbles that are created in this crazy reef here. And then we're going to take the titanium white. Now remember what I said. It's the Chiaroscuro approach. And we're just going to put it at the top. A little bit. Maybe a little bit more titanium white in here. I don't want too much, but I want it going over, see, like that. I like that. Clean that brush off, and again, roll it over. We got a wave here, we got one here, rolling over, and here, and lighter in here. I like that approach. Just kind of, give it that. Here. Let's get a little bit more Viridian here. And we're going to put it in here like that. It works good. A little bit more white. Here. And then knock it off. Now, you can, what's interesting about oil painting, sometimes we can go back simply and pull out. See? Isn't that nice? And then you can even create things with this, because we want it a little bit darker in here as far as the rock. So I'm going to pull this out. See? And then I'm going to go back in and put that nice Viridian in white. Just a little bit. See? Yeah, there you go. I like that color too. I like that color in there. I actually have a little ultramarine in there, so it's interesting right in here. And we're going to go back in here and just put a little bit of that ultramarine and get those waves moving around in a pool. And that nice swirly S technique. And in here. So it's interesting that we can go back and rub out like I was showing you. But keep it neat, keep it clean, and just take your time. I kind of go a little bit faster because I want you guys to keep your interest, and it's hard on YouTube to keep someone's interest, but this is what I'm going to do in here. And you can see me twisting my arm around. We got the bubbles in here, oxygen bubbles, and then we have it in here. And then we're going to put a little bit in here with the brush. Yeah. I like all those colors, see? We got some nice effects going on in here. Yep, and in here. Yep. So, and then if we do a little darker, we're going to go in with that little bit of that Viridian and a tiny bit of the Cadmium. Tiny bit mixed in with the Ultramarine. We'll just go back in here. We can put these waves in. See how I can go backwards with them? And then just take this brush, get it nice and clean, and just splash it up. Yeah, hitting the rocks. That's what you want. And it's coming up behind the rocks. And then a little bit more of that ultramarine and iron oxide, and you can just bring it in here darker. You have that nice contrast, that feeling in here between the wave and the contrast, and that's what you want. And here too, we're going to bring it in here too. We're just going to bring in the rock like that. Now we have a nice composition, and in here, kind of like a shale rock. So let's take a pause for a second and examine it. I'm going to go up to the top, and I'm going to kind of lighten it. So give me 1 second here, and we're going to give it kind of a bluish light look up here, and watch. Just kind of make it, if you can see my arms in the way, I'm just going to bring it in like a misty. Okay. Pull it up a little with your brush. Yeah. And a tiny bit more titanium white up there. I'm going to show you the one I did the other day. So we're just going to bring it in here. Yeah. A little bit more. A little bit more. Ultramarine and the Cerulean in here. Move your brushes. We're just going to put it in lightly. Yeah, like that. And then a little bit like that. Yeah, soften that. Floating horizon. Across. I like that. Crazy old sea there, see? I like that. I might put in a touch more of the titanium white at that top. And we're going to put some waves in here splashing at this part. So give me 1 second here. Let's put in a little bit more. Yeah, a little bit, you know. Kind of a bluish sky reflecting. If we go back in, we can take a little bit more of that cerulean and bring that in there. There you go. See, that's a color I like. With a tiny bit of that cadmium in there too. We're going to run that back and forth. Oh, I like that feeling. Now, I think the last step we're going to do before we move forward is we're going to splash the waves. Not just here, but I think we're going to bring them in one other part. I think here I want a little bit more splash. Now, Homer did go back and, of course, do more work. You can, but I like it like that, so that's how I'm leaving it. I got a little brown in there, but that's okay. And we can pat it out. There you go. See, you pick it up like a splash. And I like that. To make it look more like a splash, you just go in and put some of that behind there. See, like that. And then we can leave that. Now, you can let this dry for a couple weeks and come back in and do a little more. And it is very effective to let it dry and come back in and do some bubbles in here, those bubbles that hit the shore, and it will look very nice. Just let it dry a little bit. So I'm going to stop here now. I think we have a good effect going on, and you remember, this is something that a lot of the masters use. This floating horizon is from Japanese art, if you study that. And then, of course, Winslow, that Chiaroscuro effect, which is the approach. You bring the dark shapes in for your composition first, and then the light shape. So I think we're doing fine here today. I'm going to get a little closer here to show you. There we go. That's nice. And I'm going to show you the one that I did yesterday. Show you the difference between one and the other. Here is one. We're going to move this off now. And we're going to put the other one in. See? I'm not sure which one I like more. I like both of them, actually. I kind of do. So here's one. You see this one? We're going to get it in closer. There you go. A little closer. And then, remember those zigzag patterns too when you make your composition in your waves. And that's the other one. I don't know which one is better. They're both nice. And let them dry, and then you can work on some more. It's a good beginning. It's a good start. And it's a good technique. And if you look into Homer, Winslow Homer, you'll look at study his seascapes, and you will see some of these effects and some of these techniques I use. So thank you again. I'm back, Mayo, with Raw Art on YouTube. It's been about 1.5 years, actually. And I hope everybody is safe and healthy. And we will do another oil painting again. Thank you so much for watching. And sponsor me. And read the details on the description. I will give you some more. I will write some details about this technique. And read that description. That will help too. And I'll add the palette. Thank you. Bye.